Hello, everyone. Today we are going to look at organizing as a function of management. And organizing involves determining the work arrangement of the firm. So what we mean by that is organizing deals with arranging this work into subunits, organizing. So determining the arrangement of work. The arrangement of work in a firm. So this means breaking down work into small manageable units in which people have well-defined roles and responsibilities upon which they act upon. So we have different purpose and importance of organizing as a function. Purpose and importance of organizing as a function. So one is to define jobs or definition of jobs. What we mean by this is that in coming up with these small manageable units, we clearly define roles and responsibilities of different players in the organization. So definition of jobs. And then another one is allocation of responsibilities. What you mean by allocation of responsibilities is that everyone in the organization know the role they play in trying to achieve the organizational goals and objectives. Another one is to enhance accountability, that in arranging work in an organization, it enhances accountability that everyone now is answerable to the roles that have been given or laid upon them. And then to establish clear channels of communication, that communication now can be passed clearly since we know how work is organized in an organization, to establish clear channels of communication. Also, for resource deployment, what we mean by for resource deployment is through organizing of work, we can be able to arrange our resources in line with the organizational goals that we are trying to achieve for resource deployment. Another one is the principle of synergy, and to avoid duplication, So synergy, this is where the work done by two people is more productive than work done by one individual. So by organizing work, we create synergy in an organization and we avoid duplication of duties. Another one is division of work, in that we can clearly specialize and define our roles, so which encourages specialization also, that we know that each employee has their well-defined roles. Another one is to achieve coordination, that through organizing work or arranging work into small manageable units, we come up with a way of coordinating activities in the organization. So these are some of the importances or purposes of organizing work in an organization. So we have certain principles of organizing that we adhere to, principles of organizing. One is that the principle of objective, that the overall purpose of the organization should direct all the efforts of the organization. So In organizing this work, we have clear set objectives that we want to achieve. Another principle is principle of specialization. Principle of specialization. That in arranging work, we arrange work according to what you can do best as an employee with regards to the organizational goals and objectives, that the work of the organization should be divided and allocated to individuals who focus on that particular function. So divided to individuals who focus on that particular function, to individuals who focus on that particular function. That work which you do best, you are allocated that work in the organization. And then another one is principle of authority. Principle of authority. So this is where authority is located. It may either be located at the top level, which we deem to be centralization, or decentralization, where authority is flows down to even the subordinates. Decentralization. So that is another principle of organizing. And then another one is responsibility. Responsibility, that you are responsible for the roles that have been allocated to you as an employee of this organization, that you should be held accountable. Accountability. And then another one is principle of definition. By principle of definition, we mean that you have clearly defined roles and responsibilities upon which you try and work in line with the organizational goals and objectives. Principle of definition. Another one is there is that span of control. What we mean by span of control is the number of employees who are reporting to one line manager. So if we have a wide span of control, is whereby a large number of employees are reporting to one line manager, while a narrow span of control is where one employee is reporting to one line manager. So can either be wide or narrow. So this is number of employees reporting, number of employees reporting to a line manager. And then another principle is principle of coordination. Principle of coordination, whereby in organizing, we necessitate coordination of activities in the organization or the firm. And then principle of balance. Principle of balance. So this is where no area of the organization is given undue attention. No undue attention. That there is that sense of balance, that equality in the areas that are being given in terms of attention. Another one is principle of continuity. Principle of continuity, that it is a continuous process that is always changing with regards to the existing circumstance, that it is a continuous process, that we can reorganize our organization in line with the existing circumstances. And then another one is principle of unity of command, unity of command. So unity of command, this is whereby an employee should only report to one line manager, that an employee is more productive if he or she reports to one line manager. This is the case because, for instance, if an employee is reporting to two line managers, there are some instances where maybe the interests of both managers may conflict. Hence, there may be that delay in terms of productivity, or there may be confusion as to who or where the authority lies. So, and then examples of or elements of organizing, involve, one is job design. This entails how job is organized in the organization. For instance, this one may institute activities such as job rotation, whereby an employee in one department will, after some time, shift to a different department. Also, grouping of jobs. So this is differentiation where there is vertical and horizontal differentiation. So this one is the main issue of span of control. For instance, how many employees are reporting to one line manager? So is another element of organizing. And then another one is assignment of responsibility and authority. This is where responsibility is clearly defined and authority is stated in line with either its centralization or decentralization. Assignment of responsibility and authority. And then another one is coordination, where organizing entails bringing that cohesiveness of activities in the organization, and also line of staff relations. So these are all elements of organizing. Line of staff relations. So the next part I want us to look at is departmentation. This is still a part of organizing, where it is the process of breaking down the organization into smaller administrative units known as departments. So this is coming up with departments, or breaking down organization into departments. So we have different forms of departmentation in an organization, and they include, one is functional departmentation. Whereby an organization is divided into functions, into their various functions. So it involves first identifying functional activities of the entity, and then each functional activity as a separate department. So in this functional departmentation is whereby the organization is arranged according to the functional departments. Organization is arranged according to the functional departments. And these functional departments are departments such as HR, finance departments. So, for instance, finance, HR, human resource, or marketing, and the like. So what we mean by this is, for instance, a functional organization that is a functional departmented organization looks something like this. So if you have here, you have a CEO, then from here you can have a general manager. And then from here now is where you have those several departments that we are saying, for instance, production, marketing, finance, like that, and then HR and such. So this is functional departmentation, that organization is arranged according to functional departments. Functional departments. So what are some of the advantages of an organization being arranged in form of these functional departments? So one is that it eliminates, so advantages of this functional departmentation, it eliminates duplication of duties. Eliminates duplication of duties. Because if an organization now is arranged in form of departments, it is clearly known that there exists a department that deals with finance or HR or marketing. Another one is it enhances specialization. Enhances specialization. So for this one is that if you are an employee in one of these functional departments, you can grow your skills further in that department. So you do what you know best, that through these functional departments. And then it contributes to organizational simplicity. Contributes to organizational simplicity. Also, synergistic benefits are enjoyed. That we said synergy is where the productivity of two people is more than the productivity of one individual. Synergistic benefits are enjoyed. And then another one is that each basic activity is given due attention. So each basic activity is given due attention. Is given due attention. By this, we mean that through this defining of these basic activities, we come up with these functional departments. So some of the disadvantages of having this functional departmentation in an organization include, so we have different disadvantages that accrue with an organization adopting functional departmentation in form of organizing. So disadvantages. One is that failure of one department may lead to failure in the entire system. Failure of one department may lead to failure in the entire system. And then there is difficulties in aligning priorities across the enterprise. There is difficulties in aligning priorities across the enterprise. that through these functional departments, it's not necessarily that there will be that cohesiveness of activities, priorities across the enterprise. Also, there may be delayed decisions that there may be need for consultation through these functional departments before anything happens in their organization. Also, it is difficult to compare the performance of different departments. It is difficult to compare performance of different departments, in that the metrics that are used in measuring performance in production may not be the same metrics that are adopted in measuring performance in finance. It is difficult to compare performance of different departments. And also, due to the high degree of interdependence between departments, conflicts may be high. Conflicts may be high. Conflicts may arise because these departments, they are interdependent in a way. So that is functional departmentation. Another form of departmentation that we have is product departmentation. So unlike the functional department where it was organized in line with the functional activities or the functional departments that we have, for instance, the HR and the finance, for product departmentation, it is organized in line with the product departmentation, or the geographical area, product departmentation. So this one, each major product is organized as a separate department to take care of its production, marketing, and research. So organization is arranged in line with product. Organization is arranged according to product. That an organization's structure is made from the different products that it makes. For instance, a structure may look like this: the CEO, then you have the general manager, and then from this one, you have a product A, which has similar departments like processing, marketing, and the likes. And then you have another product B, with its own departments, for instance, processing, marketing, and the likes. So this is what we deem to be marketing departmentation, that an organization is arranged according to products. So there are some of the advantages that accrue from an organization being arranged in line with the products that it manufactures. One, so advantages. One of the advantage is that in making a product have its own department, we can focus on the quality of that product and produce a higher quality of the same. So better quality, since each product has its own department, better quality goods and services. Another one, failure of one department does not affect the rest. Failure of one department does not affect the entire organization. That if product A fails, product B will still be sold, does not affect the entire organization. And then another advantage is that it is easy to identify the loss-making products So easy to know the loss-making products, that through these product departments, we can tell that if it's product C that is not selling as much, we will be able to identify that product. Another one is there is faster decision making, because each and every product has its own mini departments from which it makes its own decision making. And then it leads to specialization of physical facilities, specialization of physical facilities, that they can now use the necessary facilities they need to make that specific product. And also there are fewer conflicts. Just as there are advantages to this product departmentation in an organization, there are also disadvantages that come with it. So some of these disadvantages may entail, one is that since there is that each product having its own mini departments, there is duplication of efforts, and facilities. So this one is expensive, hence is expensive, because each product will require its own facilities, hence is expensive. Another one, synergy is lost, because now each product acts on its own interests. Synergy is lost, and then may lead to underutilization of corporate resources, And then difficulties may arise in building a consistent corporate image, that there is lack of that consistency in the corporate image. That if one product is doing much better than the other, you may fail to have a clear image of the organization. Lack of consistency in the corporate image. And then there may be focus on short-term goals at the expense of long-term goals. Focus on short-term goals at the expense of long-term goals. So these are some of the disadvantages from organizing your organization in form of product departments. Focus on short-term goals at the expense of long-term goals. So this one is now the product departmentation that you are saying, that it is organized according to product. So the next one is another form of departmentation is regional departmentation. And for regional, just as the name suggests, this is organizing your farm in according to the areas or the geographical areas your branches are. So regional departmentation, or where your market is. So this is appropriate where the entity has activities spread to different geographical locations. So this one, different geographical locations. So this is where an organization has arranged its departments in terms of the areas or the market it serves. So some of the advantages from this may include Staff maintenance costs are minimized. Staff maintenance costs are minimized. Like for instance, if we have different branches elsewhere, the staff maintenance costs are minimized in that we don't have to finance the movement of expatriates. Staff maintenance costs are minimized. These are some of the advantages that accrue to using regional departmentation in an organization. Also, better coordination of activities. That we can coordinate activities in line with where our branches are of activities. Another one is better customer service, because staff is conversant with local needs. Better customer service. That the staff that we have employed in that area, they understand the needs of those people best, and whatever they come up with will be in line with satisfaction of those customers' needs. And then it is also easy to develop general managers. So we can come up with general managers for these different branches that we have in our organization. So some of the disadvantages of the same may be disadvantages of having this regional departmentation in an organization. One is that synergy is lost. And by this, we mean that each branch in itself acts on its own. So there's no synergistic benefits that we will enjoy from that. And then, so another one, it's expensive to establish and maintain a branch. Establishing and maintaining a branch is expensive. That in coming up with a branch, it is expensive to set it up and actually maintain it there. And then the head office may base control over some of the branches. Head office may base control over some branches. So this is what you're saying, that these are some of the disadvantages that may accrue from regional departmentation as a way of organizing your firm or enterprise. Another form of departmentation is process departmentation. And by process departmentation, this is where you organize your firm or enterprise in line with their processes that you conduct. Process departmentation. That you organize your firm in line with the production processes. Production processes are broken down into discrete stages. That you come up with stages to form departments for your production processes. So some of the advantages for this is that, you see, if you break down these production processes and come up with departments of those subunits, you will be able to employ or use experts at each stage. Experts are appointed at each stage. So you'll use the best in terms of knowledge or technical expertise in that stage. Also economical in terms of repairs, economical in terms of repairs and maintenance, that the whole process in itself won't have to stop because it has been already subdivided into different stages, and just one stage is enough to continue with the rest, economical in terms of repairs and maintenance. That breaking down of one stage does not necessarily mean that the production process has to stop. Maintenance. And then it facilitates also the use of heavy and costly equipment in an efficient manner. So efficiency, also efficiency, in that we can utilize all our equipments to the best of their ability. And then another one is it encourages specialization, specialization. So some of the disadvantages of this include disadvantages of using now process departmentation in coming up with an organizational structure is that aspect of comparison is difficult. Comparison is difficult, that you cannot really compare these subunits in terms of performance. Comparison is difficult. Also, there is coordination problems. For instance, there may be conflicts within these subunits or these stages of process departments. Coordination problems. Another one is there's little scope for managers. So what do you mean by little scope for managers? The area in which they operate in is limited to that specific stage that we created as a department. And then another one is interdepartmental conflicts, that there may arise those conflicts in between these departments. And then lastly, the other form of departmentation is customer departmentation. So this is now organizing your farm or enterprise in line with the customer that you serve. So this is where different departments are created to serve each. So departments are created to serve each customer group. That you come up with different departments according to the different customers that you serve as an enterprise. So advantages of that, of organizing your farm or enterprise in line with your customer, is that you give full attention to every customer that you have organized your enterprise in line with. So there is that full attention. And some of the demerits or the disadvantages of organizing your farm in line with customers is that it may lead to underutilization of resources and duplication of facilities. So the next structure I want us to look at is a matrix structure. So this one is known as a two-boss structure, and it is also regarded to be a hybrid of the functional and the product departmentation. That a functional and project or product departmentation, functional and product departmentation, that an employee answers to two different bosses or line managers. So what happens is that this one it defies the disunity of command. So it brings about the disunity of command that one employee in this case now reports to 2 line managers. To 2 line managers. So what we mean by this is, for instance, you have a structure that here you have top management. This is the level top management, and then you have production, and then finance, and also let's say marketing. So from this one, now you have a product or project manager, product or project manager. And then you also have, from finance, you also have another subunit here. So what happens is this manager has to interact with employees on both accounts. Like for instance, if there's an employee in the finance department and another employee here, so what happens is, before the project manager approves of anything, this employee has to take into account what the finance department is doing. Like for instance, in terms of inventory, they may have to So under matrix structure, we are saying that this employee has to answer to both these managers in line with the decisions that are to be made. Like for instance, this employee, if he was to make a decision, he has to consult both the finance manager and the project manager. This is in contrast with the unity of command that states that one employee should only be answerable to one line manager. So that is unity of command. So that is the matrix structure that we have. So some of the advantages or benefits that come with adopting a matrix structure, advantages may include: one, the resources are utilized efficiently. So utilization of resources, since there is that interaction of the employees with 2 line managers, utilization of resources. Another one is that the firm enjoys dual benefits of a product and functional structure. So dual benefits of a product and functional structure, that we are saying that now this is a hybrid of both functional and product departmentation. Dual benefits of product and functional structures. Another one, it motivates and challenges people for better performance. Motivates for better performance, because now you get to interact with 2 different line managers. Also, it allows for that cross-fertilization of ideas, that through interacting with these 2 line managers, you come up with the best ideas or policies to implement in line with the departments that you serve. Also, services of professionals are utilized. Are better utilized. That you now utilize the services of those professionals better, because now they get to give an input on different departments. And then some of the disadvantages of this matrix structure include: one, it violates the principle of unity of command that we are saying violates the principle of unity of command. And by violating this principle, some of the disadvantages that come with it is that, for instance, if an employee now answers to two different line managers, there is that aspect of confusion that the employee may have in doing his duties or roles. So it is difficult and also to design and implement, difficult to design and implement, that it is a complex structure in itself, difficult to design and implement. Also, there is delayed decisions that this employee has to consult both line managers before making a definite decision. Another one is lack of trust may develop. That there may be that lack of trust between now the line managers. And then it may be expensive due to its complexity. It may also be expensive to implement because it's complex in nature, expensive to implement. Also, there may be that confusion as to where the responsibility ends or rests, where responsibility rests. That it is not clear who is to be held accountable for the decisions made in line with this matrix structure, because you have two line managers that you're consulting in line with the decisions that are to be made. And then the next part I want us to look at is authority and responsibility. So authority, the difference between authority and responsibility is that authority is the right to exercise power. Is the right to exercise power. Authority is the right to exercise power and to give orders. So this one you can give orders. You give orders and exert obedience. So while responsibility, on the other hand, responsibility is the obligation placed on a person who occupies a given position. Obligation due to a given position. And then for power now is the ability to exert influence on a person. This is the ability to exert influence on a person. And we have different sources of this ability to exert influence on a person, of which they include one, so sources of power. One, you have legitimate power. And by legitimate power, this is the power that is derived from the position that one occupies in the organizational hierarchy. So this one is from the position that you occupy. One occupies. The other one is reward power. This is the ability to give or dish out rewards according to performances of your employees. So this is the power that is derived from the ability of the influencer to reward the influencee for compliance. So ability to reward for compliance, to reward for compliance. So this is that ability that you can institute, that since this employee was doing so well, he deserves a reward. So that is reward power, that you can actually institute a reward. And then coercive power. Coercive power. Coercive power. So for coercive power, this power is based on fear, intimidation, and threat. So this one is threatening, fear, intimidation, and threat, whereby you make people, you exert influence on people based on fear or intimidation. Another one is referent power. Referent power. So this is power that is based on the followers' identification with the leaders. It is based on the influences, desires to want or to be like or to be associated with the influencers. So based on followers' identification with leaders. Followers' identification with leaders. That from you wanting to be like the leader that, let's say you aspire to be like, you have that referent power. Followers' identification with leaders. With leaders. And then another one is technical authority. Technical authority. So this one is power that is derived from you having knowledge or expertise in a certain field. So power that is derived from specific knowledge. This one is specific knowledge. Specific knowledge, from specific knowledge. Or this one is also known as expert power, technical authority, or expert power. Expert power, that you have specific knowledge in a given field. And then charismatic power. Charismatic power. So this one is based on the inherent characteristics of an individual, that he has a power in terms of the inherent characteristics from, let's say, his speaking ability, speaking ability. So this one are the inherent traits that give you a sense of power in terms of your position. And then association power. Association power. So this one is power that is derived from associating with the leaders. So associating power derived from associating with powerful people. So from associating with powerful people, you have association power. And then another thing I want us to look at is delegation. So what we mean by delegation, this is where you give up part of your responsibility to another individual to do the same type of roles or responsibilities that you had been given. So on delegation is conferring those rights or obligations to an individual to act in the capacity that you would have done in the same position. So delegation, this is the process by which authority confers part of authority to his junior. So an authority confers part of his authority to juniors, that you empower your juniors in with authority or some form of power. And then, so we have certain principles of delegation, where one, we have principle of functional definition. Functional definition. What we mean by this is now stating the roles and responsibilities required of that person you are delegating the work to. And then 2, principle of unity of command. Unity of command. So for this one, this is where the subordinate, we say the subordinate only answers to one line managers. So this one, it will help in delegation since if you confer part of your authority to someone, that person should ideally answer to you. And then principle of delegation by results expected. That you delegate work based on the kind of results that you expect, based on results expected. And then that delegation of authority should be on the basis of results expected, that you delegate authority based on the type of results that you expect. And then principle of absoluteness of responsibility. Principle of absoluteness of responsibilities. For this one, what we mean is even if you're delegating, you are still responsible or answerable to the actions of your subordinates. So if you had delegated roles and the subordinate acts in a way that did not fit the roles that you had said and ended up causing damage or loss to the organization, you are answerable to the subordinates. You are answerable on behalf of the subordinates' action, for the actions of the subordinates, that you are still the one in charge for the actions of subordinates. And then another one is principle of parity of authority and responsibility. Authority and responsibility. That the parity between authority and responsibility will be essential in achieving efficiency. So the subordinate should not be burdened with high responsibility or performance responsibility without delegating enough authority. So that the responsibility that you have delegated to this subordinate should be in line with also the authority that has been conferred to him as the person you have delegated your responsibilities to. And then another one is authority level principle. Authority level principle. So maintenance of intended delegation requires that decisions within the authority competence of individuals be made by them and not be referred upward in the organizational structure. So what we mean by this is if something is in your means and you have the expertise in making a decision on the same, you should make the decision in line with the authority that has been conferred to you. And then the Scalar principle. It refers to the chain of command relationship between superiors and subordinates through the organization. So this one is how authority is arranged, that you should take into account how authority is arranged when delegating your roles or responsibilities to a junior or a subordinate. So what are some of the importance of this delegation? Some of the importance of delegating your roles or responsibilities to senior. One is that it motivates them. Also, it helps them in improving their skills, so advantages. of delegation of delegation. One is that so it hastens or fastens the speed of decision making, that decisions now are made at a faster pace than if it was to be concentrated to a specific level of management, that these juniors now, they can make decisions based on the authorities that is upon them. Also, they easen or lessen the manager's workload, that through delegation, the managers now can focus on other core businesses of the organization. And then it increases flexibility in the organization, that we can have this kind of delegation in an organization. And then it provides an opportunity for training. This is what you're saying, provides an opportunity for training for these juniors or subordinates, opportunity for training and development. That through this delegation, they get to learn new skills, and then it motivates employees, also motivates employees, and also it facilitates organizational growth, So these are some of the advantages from that accrue to delegation in terms of an organization adapting the delegation of duties. So some of the barriers to effective delegation may be: one, so barriers to this effective delegation is there may be misunderstanding in line with the roles that have been delegated. So misunderstanding, one is misunderstanding. Also, insufficient definition of tasks, that there may be lacking in terms of the definition of the roles that you have been given as a subordinate, insufficient delegation of or definition of tasks, and then incompetency of the staff may make incompetence of staff may make this delegation to cost the company in itself. Also, corporate fear of failure. There's that fear of failure from relying on others, fear of failure from relying on others. That in you giving up your roles, you're not as sure as you would be if you did the same tasks yourself. And then belief in the fallacy that if I am a manager, the only way that I can do, the only way that this work can be done best is if I do it myself. Also, the unwillingness of subordinates to take up, delegated authority. That some of these subordinates are not willing to take up this delegated authority. So these are some of the barriers to effective delegation that we have. And that is it on delegation and advantages and disadvantages from the same, or the barriers that hinder effective delegation. Now, the next part I want us to look at is centralization and decentralization, whereby we say centralization, this is where authority is concentrated at one level of the management. So we have centralization. This is where authority is concentrated at the top level of management. So it's a systematic and consistent reservation of authority at a central point in the organization, reservation of authority that authority is concentrated at one level of the organization, while decentralization, this one is where authority is delegated to all other subordinates and lower level management. So is the deliberate effort to delegate all decision making. So decision making is delegated even to lower level managers. Decision making is delegated to lower level managers or to the lower level managers. So there are some advantages that come with or that support the arguments now that support centralization, that for an organization to be run effectively, we should reserve authority at a central point in the organization. So some of the arguments of this include arguments for centralization. One is that if we reserve power or authority at the top level, so the top level can maintain control of the organization. So there is that maintain, they are able to, top management, maintain control. So they don't lose control to the subordinates, unlike in decentralization. Also, it keeps the top managers on their toes. Keeps top managers on their toes, since they know responsibility lies on them. Keep top managers on their toes. Another one is that, you see, from reservation of authority at a central point, it is easier to coordinate activities in the organization. That's easy to coordinate, easier to coordinate. Easier to coordinate. And then another one is a synergy eliminates duplication. So it eliminates duplication, that you don't have the same role that is being done by the top management being done by the subordinates or the lower level managers. And then another one is it encourages integration of activities. Integration of activities. And then it minimizes errors and risks that may result from lower level managers. So minimizes errors and risks. Minimizes errors and risks from if lower managers were to institute decisions. And then, so these are some of the arguments for centralization, and we have arguments for arguments against centralization. So the arguments for centralization are the arguments against decentralization. So one is that there is excessive bureaucracy that for you to get anything done, you have to consult even the people who now have reserved this authority at the top level management. Excessive bureaucracy. Another one, it leads to delayed decision making because you have to consult with the people who have the authority reserved to themselves. It leads to delayed decision making. And then some decisions are better made at the lower levels of the farm. Are better made at the lower level of the farm. Since the lower level, they know better what is going on in the day-to-day activities of the organization, are better made at the lower level. Also, it lowers the morale for employees. That because of that lack of involvement of these employees, they feel demotivated in the decisions that are made in the organization. And then it denies employees chance to develop their skills. Lastly, it denies employees chance to develop their skills. So these are some of the arguments against centralization that we have. So the arguments against centralization are the arguments for decentralization. Like for instance, if this one is increasing or excessive bureaucracy, in decentralization, the arguments for decentralization will be it reduces bureaucracy. Also, the arguments for decentralization will be, for this one, if it leads to delayed decision making, for decentralization, it leads to faster decision making. So the arguments for centralization are the arguments against now decentralization, because now for decentralization, there is no, the management won't maintain the control that is needed in the organization. So that is it on organization or organizing as a function of management. And we have discussed on the various aspects of organizing as the function of management.